Sena, and in my native language, it translates to history. Before I jump into my story, I want to give you a quick history lesson of where I come from. Because in order to understand me, you have to understand my home country and my people. I am Oromo. We are an indigenous African people inhabiting in the northeastern part of Africa, also known as Ethiopia, specifically in Ethiopia. So we are the single most dominant, largest ethnic group in East Africa, but most people don't know that we exist. And that's because we were colonized by Ethiopia in the 19th century. And since then, Ethiopians have systematically suppressed us, have taken away our Oromo culture, looted our Oromo resources, and divided the Oromo people by region, by religion, and tried to really eradicate our identity. And today, when nearly all of the African people in the continent have won their independence, the Oromo people continue to suffer under the most backward and savage Ethiopian settler colonialism. And although the Oromo nation is one of the largest ethnic group in Africa, it's forgotten about and still unknown to most in this now. And so because of that, as a part of my activism for my people, when I walk into a room such as this and in other spaces, I always say, my name is Sena and I am Oromo, because I will not allow my people to be forgotten. So I was born in Ethiopia. My mom and my dad had 13 kids. I am number 12. And so growing up, we had a pretty great life. My dad was an head of the agriculture department in the Ethiopian government. He worked for 30 years doing that work. And my mom did a lot of the farming work and really just took care of our family. Everything was great as far as I can remember until I was 4 years old and everything changed. And so when I was 4 years old, forgot to mention my dad is a political activist. He fought for the rights and the basic human rights of the Oromo people. And so one day he was arrested by the Ethiopian militia, the Ethiopian military. They came into our house one night, and we didn't get to see him until a year later. And that's the beginning of the story of the separation of my family. And during his time in prison, I did get a chance to see him once, and my dad always tells me this story because I don't remember. And he told me that as a baby, my mom was holding me, and I looked at him through a jail cell, and I was confused as to why I couldn't give him a hug. I was crying hysterically at the separation between us. And so my dad actually ended up escaping to Kenya, seeking refuge in the hopes of being able to bring his family together. And so he went through the process. He got to Kenya. Unfortunately, out of the 13 kids, only 8 were able to go to Kenya. And that was a hard decision that my mom had to make because that was the only space that there was to bring the kids. So we were separated at that point. We lived in Kenya in a 1-bedroom household, really just 1 bedroom, with the nine of us in that space. And throughout that experience, while we struggled to make ends meet, while we were, we couldn't really leave the house because we didn't have papers, we'd get arrested, while we sometimes didn't have food to eat, right? What kept us going was this idea that we will be able to go to America. We will be able to find home in that space and be secure and come together as a family. And that's really what kept us going. And we got that opportunity. It was exciting. 5 years later, we were able to get on a plane and come to the U.S. And coming to the U.S., we wanted to come here to create a better life, right? Although we experienced culture shock, we had the language barriers we had to overcome. My father always instilled in me that education was the key to success. And so, going back to what I was saying, when my dad said I needed to not only excel in school, but I needed to be number one, right? If you have an immigrant parent, y'all know how that goes. As every immigrant parent tells their kids that you have to excel in school. And so I did. I excelled, I learned English, I was in honors classes, I got to college, and made my way through. And I truly believe that if I excelled in school, that we would be successful. And I would be able to bring my parents out of poverty, and we'd be able to live the life that we dreamed of. But that wasn't the reality, right? And as I began to maneuver through life, as I got to high school, I started to see certain things. I started to see myself through society, that there was, that I didn't see myself in before. So I started to realize that my skin tone bothers some people, that my religion is a threat to some people, as I'm Muslim, and that my womanhood means I'm not capable or deserving. I began to see that my path to success meant that I had to jump through hoops of obstacles, climb mountains, and whitewash myself as much as I could if I wanted any chance at opening the door or walking through cracked open doors that our ancestors have paved the way for us. And I had to do all of this all while trying to stay true to myself and loving myself in a society that teaches me to hate me. And even then, the path to success was slim. It was then that I knew in my heart that I needed to do something, that I could not allow myself, my community, and the future generations to experience what I was experiencing in a country that I imagined completely differently. I started to enter the world of community organizing in 2016. One day in college, sophomore year of college, I'll never forget, I was in class, my social studies class, and I kept seeing these on social media, this guy named Donald Trump, right, on TV, and I kept hearing him spew out hate. Specifically, my entire identity as a Black Muslim woman was under attack. And so when I saw an organizer come to my classroom and tell us that there's an opportunity to be able to fight back against this, I was all in. And so within that, I found myself at an interview. I had no clue what organizing was. I thought I was organizing things, not people. Quickly I started to get to work, right? Naturally, my assignment was to organize high schoolers, and naturally I was able to organize young African Muslims that look like me, that were never tapped into within the state of Arizona, that were active and engaged and empowered by the entire experience. The African high schoolers were volunteering to be civically engaged, registering voters, knocking on doors, and understanding their power and their voice. They were fighting for their own immigrant parents and family members, as I was. And so that was one of the most life-changing experiences of my life. I began to see that there was much more hope in change that there was to come. And so 3 years later, after doing that work, I realized that I needed to be in a space where I felt that I belonged in. I was able to work at an organization called the Arizona Coalition for Change, a Black-led organization that's made by us, for us, where for the first time ever I felt a sense of belonging in my workplace, and one that aligned with my values. And that's the work that I'm doing today. In 2020, just going back to what I was saying earlier about my people and just how I lead with my background and where I come from. In 2020, I also started an organization of my own. It's called Oromo Youth Association. It's a chapter that I started in Arizona due to the fact that there was a massacre that happened back home to my people. In response to that, we were organizing out here. And so for me, I am, as an immigrant in the United States, I'm grateful that we are able to voice ourselves, being able to have the ability to have the right to speak. And that's really powerful because back home we were shut down. And so because of that, because my father was silenced when he did the work that he was doing, I will forever shout, right? I will forever shout for my people. I will forever shout for all of us in this space until we get what we deserve.